What if I told you that 1 Corinthians 13 was never meant to make you feel like a failure? You read, "Love is patient," and remember the last time you lost your patience. You read, "Love is kind," and remember when your words were anything but kind. You read, "Love keeps no record of wrongs," and suddenly remember the person whose mistakes you still haven't forgotten. And you begin thinking, how can I ever love like this? Here's the good news. Stop looking at yourself for a moment and look at Jesus. Because 1 Corinthians 13 isn't only a portrait of love, it is a portrait of Jesus. Welcome back to Lesson 7, A Portrait of Love. Yesterday we discovered what love does not do. Love doesn't envy. It doesn't boast. It isn't puffed up. It isn't rude or selfish. It isn't easily provoked. It doesn't keep a record of wrongs. And it doesn't rejoice when someone falls. But if we're being truthful, every one of us has failed somewhere on that list. So today, instead of simply looking at ourselves, we're going to look at the one who demonstrated every characteristic of love perfectly: Jesus Christ. 1 John 4:8 gives us one of the simplest yet most profound descriptions of God in the entire Bible. God is love. It doesn't merely say God has love. God is love. And if we want to know what that love looks like when expressed in human life, we look at Jesus. So let's do something interesting. Take the description of love in 1 Corinthians 13 and place the name Jesus there. Jesus is patient. Think about how patient Christ was with his disciples. Peter was impulsive. Thomas doubted. James and John wanted positions of greatness. The disciples repeatedly misunderstood what Jesus was teaching them. Yet Jesus continued teaching them, correcting them, forgiving them, loving them. And aren't you thankful that Jesus is still patient today? Paul himself understood this. He had persecuted Christians. Yet in 1 Timothy 1, Paul speaks about the extraordinary patience and mercy Christ showed toward him. Jesus didn't simply see Paul the persecutor. Jesus saw Paul the apostle he could become. That brings us to another characteristic. Love believes all things. When Ananias heard that Saul had become a believer, he was understandably skeptical. He essentially said, "Lord, I've heard about this man," but Jesus responded, "He is a chosen vessel unto me." Ananias saw Saul's past. Jesus saw Saul's potential. And perhaps that's how Jesus looks at you today. People may remember what you did. People may remember your failures. People may define you by your worst moment. But Jesus sees what you can become through his grace. Jesus is also kind. Look at how he treated people society rejected. The leper, the Samaritan woman, the woman caught in adultery, tax collectors, sinners, people others avoided, Jesus approached. People others condemned, Jesus offered grace. But perhaps the greatest demonstration of 1 Corinthians 13 is this: Jesus endures all things. Hebrews 12 tells us that Jesus endured the cross. Think about that. The mocking, the rejection, the betrayal, the nails, the crown of thorns, and ultimately the cross. Why did he endure it? Love. 1 John 3:16 says, "Hereby perceive we the love of God, because he laid down his life for us." Calvary is God's definition of love. Jesus didn't merely tell us, "I love you." He stretched out his arms on a cross and demonstrated it. And then Jesus gave his followers a remarkable command in John 13:34. "As I have loved you, that ye also love one another." Notice the standard. Jesus didn't say, "Love people according to how they treat you. Love them when they deserve it. Love them when they agree with you." He said, "As I have loved you." That changes everything. So when you read 1 Corinthians 13 and realize you fall short, don't give up. Look to Jesus. Because the same Jesus who perfectly demonstrated love wants to reproduce that love in you through the Holy Spirit. When you're tempted to hold someone's past against them, remember Jesus. When someone disappoints you, remember Jesus. When loving someone becomes difficult, remember Jesus. Because ultimately, Christian love isn't about trying harder to become a nicer person. Because ultimately, Christian love isn't about trying harder to become a nicer person. It's about allowing Jesus to live his life through us. So pray today, "Jesus, teach me to see people the way you see them. Forgive the way you forgive. Endure the way you endured. And love the way you love." Because if you want to know what true love looks like, don't just read the definition. Look at Jesus.